other issue of clearly doing an audit of voter registration, which is really not an audit. It's really doing a new voter register. You audit, you remove those who are dead, you bring new ones. That is really having a new register. How long will that take? Cumulatively, those will take us to almost 10 months. That's why I'm just asking those in power, especially the president and the opposition chief, right, Odinga, to tell Kenyans the truth that this date of August is not workable. It's not feasible.
That is Nyamira Senator Mongare, who is talking about the timelines towards August 2017, saying we're not being told the truth. Tonight on Checkpoint, we have Honorable Peter Kaluma and we also have Honorable Moses Kuria. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
On Checkpoint. I'd like to start with you, Kuria. Your reactions to that. Are we not being told the truth? Where do you think we stand with the elections in August 2017?
The issue is told the truth by who? Because when we formed the Parliamentary Joint Select Committee, where I sat, it was the hope of Kenyans that this issue is not going to be a partisan issue anymore. And for me, it saddens me when I find now that we are not being told the truth, Jubilee is not doing this. You know, when these guys went to the streets, you know, we thought that was the end of that kind of, you know, partisanship. And all of us own this baby. So no one can say, I'm not being told the truth, because as it were, it's a parliamentary process. It is actually a Parliamentary Service Commission, which is the secretariat of the rest of the process. So we own all of it. So I think that, yes, there's much more that needs to come out, but I don't think it helps much to actually point fingers or try to apportion blame or even responsibility. It is a parliamentary process. It is a Jubilee parliament as much as it's a cold parliament. And I think that we are going to save this country much more stress and energy if we look at this from a bipartisan perspective.
In a post that you made on social media the other day, you talked about this being everybody's job, but then nobody's job.
Correct.
And you've lamented about how, you know, the process is being midwifed by essentially no one. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, you see, like now when we had the issue of negotiating with the outgoing commissioners, and the AG would say, I'm negotiating or I'm waiting for someone, somebody else, everybody was waiting for someone, and everybody was looking at the other person to do something. I do recall that in the committee, and actually it was captured in the report, after my recommendation, I said that our committee ought to have been given an extension of the mandate so that we can be able to keep on checking the timelines and checking the sanity of implementation of our own recommendation. Unfortunately, that did not happen by the time we went for recess, and we didn't even insist to be our committee. It could have been the JLAC, you know, the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, where my friend Peter Kaluma sits. Yes. But as it were now, you know, it's actually exactly what I put it. Yeah. Everybody's job becoming nobody's job. Right. And I still do hope that when we go back to Parliament, we are going to sort of create an oversight mechanism over the implementation of our own recommendation. Yeah. And because having such kind of a mechanism is going to, what is happening now is exactly what I had predicted then, where instead of oversighting the detail and checking from a professional timelines, yes, right. Are we on track, is everything right? Yeah. Then now, because nobody owns that, then this becomes a fodder for politicians to speak from the podiums. You've heard, you know, the Honorable Raila Odinga speak, Musalia Mudavadi spoke, the Senator of Nyamira has spoken. Who knows? But that's just not the way to do things.
Okay, all right. And you're smiling. Do you want to respond before I ask?
I'm smiling because Moses Kuria is responding to his own questions. You know, the question you asked, Yvonne, is whether the Senator for Nyamira is speaking sense. And I think that is something we need to answer straight away. One, it is unfortunate he's making this mention. You know, there was a previous bill in Parliament to amend the Constitution to extend the date of elections from 8th of August next year. And of course, it was overwhelmingly supported by the Jubilee side. It was opposed largely by our side. Either way, that private member's bill fell. Yvonne, let me tell you, I'm the only member of Parliament in Kenya who has been fortunate to bring a bill before Parliament to amend the Constitution. processing that bill to the time it begins debate in Parliament, if it were a private member's bill, I can tell you we'll take a whole year. So that I'm telling my brother, the senator for Nyamira, that what he's proposing is impossible. Number two, remember when you move the date for elections, you essentially extend also the term of office of the president.
Yeah.
And that is not something you can do through an ordinary parliamentary legislative process. It goes to a referendum. You know what it would take with the constitution of the commission you're talking about, the funding issues, the processing of referenda questions, and all those issues as we move forward. So let me tell my brother that let us avoid this hangover, that the election date can move from 8th of August. The elections are set by the Constitution. What we should be doing is to prepare for that electoral process. And if you are a member of parliament imagining you can get an extra term, remember for purposes of law, our term as members of parliament, and Moses Kuria will tell you, is until the next general election. So nobody says we serve for 5 years.
All right.
We can even serve for a year.
Okay.
And there is a general election.
But yet, the Nyamira senator, as well as the CEO of IEBC, are talking about the constraints of the timeline. And Raila Odinga is on record as saying Jubilee is delaying the process of getting new commissioners.
Yes, Yvonne, this is about the lawmaking process in Parliament.
Yeah.
And I wanted to say that, let me start by commending, Brother Kuria and his team for doing some substantial work in terms of processing the country for elections within the context of the joint, parliamentary select committee on matters, IEBC and related matters, which gave us recommendations. Remember, they had only 30 days. And there is a good reason as to why we gave them only 30 days. They had very weighty issues. I can tell you, Yvonne and Moses will confirm, I'm the only member of parliament who appeared before this committee as an expert on matters, democracy and elections, and made presentations there. They were highly constrained. These gentlemen worked, and ladies, of course, worked up to the night. In terms of the bill, you remember when it came to parliament, there was a signal being sent by the leaders of the majority and the leaders of the minority, by, of course, the president of the country and the leaders of the opposition, that we don't want any alteration. I can tell you, looking at the bill which came from the Joint Select Committee as a lawyer, there were so many things that we would have amended. And you saw the haste with which we were passing it. Our position was that time was of the essence in terms of having this law, because there are so many processes to begin.
Yeah, and I'm sorry to rush you a little bit, but because time is now the issue that a couple of people are complaining about, that perhaps doing an audit of the IBC register, of the voters register, will take time.
Let me go there. We still have a lot of time to do what we need to do. What we regret as the CORD coalition is that, particular officers delayed a bit of action. Yvonne, when you have an urgent issue where even members of parliament are saying we are not making amendments, like this one we had, they should be done expeditiously. I regret the speaker delayed remitting the bill to the president. And the president, instead of putting his hand to the bill, knowing, members of parliament did not make any alterations, took his entire time of 14 days. And of course, then gazettement takes 7 days. Then the law has to come into force after 14 days. That is a whole, over 1 month being taken in between, which would have been avoided if, we proceeded on the understanding that whether or not we have a maximum of 14 days, the maximum is only to enable you cross-check. That the president ought to have gone expeditiously. But in terms of the worry, there is nothing that cannot be done. In fact, Yvonne, let me dare say, in terms of the framework of the law which came from the Kuria committee, we have a lot of time remaining to process the country for elections. And I think this I would be explaining later. But remember this thing you call audit of the register and others. So long as you're going to implement the integrated electronic electoral system that Moses Kuria and others put in the law now, what audit do you need? Because you are auditing to remove ghost voters, you are auditing to have dead people voting, stuffing of votes, multiple voting. Once you have electronic voter identification. It sorts the entire system out.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me speak to Honorable Moses Kuria for a moment. IBC is saying conducting the primary party primaries will be difficult considering the funding issue. They're also talking about, you know, the new law that says you must only have 500 voters per polling station. That means we're going to increase them by almost twice the amount. And they're sort of raising these red flags. Do you think their concerns are valid?
First of all, let me commend my brother Peter Kaluma here on his comment about the audit of the register.
Yeah.
Because that was exactly my point even at Windsor when we were discussing this thing. And I was saying, and I'm saying this as an ICT expert, once you have got integrated BVR, EVID, you know, which is all seamless, then the whole issue of audit becomes superfluous, as it were. But I think because also a lot of people are getting so many instructions from out there, and there was that, you know, overarching need to feel like you have won something. They insisted on the audit, and I kept saying, and I think it's unanswered, that even if we put it on the law that you're going, or in the report that you're going to have an audit, it is completely superfluous as long as we focus on technology. Even at this point, and I'm happy it's Kaluma who is saying this, I wish there's a way we are informed by wisdom, so that we don't, you know, shoot from the west and shoot from the east at the same time. I think our focus now needs to be twofold. One, I've got every reason to believe that tomorrow, you know, the Hassan team is going to accept some package which they are going to agree with, which is going to be, you know, a formal or informal notification of resignation, which is one major milestone that we've not covered, you know, so far. So then the next milestone becomes, how soon do we have a selection panel? And how soon do we have, you know, advertisements going out? And how soon do we have people applying there? And I think I even feel tempted to ask you to put this show on hold, and we call Omtata and ask him whether he's going to go to court. Because that's another variable which you cannot,
which we have not.
Which we are not factored in this particular process. You know, Kenyans being Kenyans, you know, Omtata is my good friend, but him and his types, one of them is going to go to court, and then we find ourselves like, you know, what we had within.
Is this the nightmare? Is this the nightmare that you were referring to? Because you said the worst nightmare will happen on Friday when a commission should be in place. Which should be in place,
at least,
the failure. Or are you happy at least?
The issue of 30th of September was in the report, not in the law. So I think we have said the report represented largely the spirit, not the actual. So I think we are past that one. But I also want to agree with Kaluma that we can achieve all this. And with regard to what the guys in IBC are saying, I would just say, excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to get down to work. It is possible to do all these things. The only thing we are missing right now...
funding issue. Is
no,
that
funding
something
is not a problem.
Parliament we
What
can
funding? I mean, I sit in the budget committee.
Right.
There's no, and we've said clearly, if IEBC comes to us and tells us we need more money because whatever you put in the New Elections Act that requires you to supervise over party nominations, we didn't factor it in. We will agree, and we are going to provide
funding,
the funds.
You're saying here funding will
is
not
not
be
an
an
issue.
issue.
Even as it were for the things that were foreseen at this point before the new amendments came in, they were totally funded, and even them, when they came before our committee, by their own admission, they said they've never seen a year when money for running our electoral cycle was more available than it is now. All the other things we can manage.
All right.
We need to just get down to work. But the only thing we are missing, in my opinion, is because of those rushed timelines and the crowded calendar, you can't do this without some sort of an oversight mechanism, if only to assure the country on track and also to get politicians from commenting on these matters from the podium.
All right, and let's talk about politicians commenting on these matters from the podium. It would seem, Honorable Kaluma, that ODM wants us to go back to the streets. Let's listen to what Honorable Jeanette Mohammed had to say at a rally just this weekend.
Mambo ya IEBC, nimesikia ya kwamba commissioners wamekataa kutoka kwa ofisi kwa sababu ya procurement. Wanataka wafanye procurement yote wakule hiyo pesa ndio watoke. Tarehe 10 tumetangaza maandamano ya IEBC.
So on the 10th, back to the streets?
Yvonne, Moses has said there was an agreement in the recommendations. And I can tell the country, it is a very voluminous, kind of documentation. Indeed, it was agreed that these commissioners were leaving by end of September. So what Junet Mohamed and, of course, members of the CORD coalition were reacting to was the idea that it appeared to be the case that Issa Hassan and fellow commissioners were mortgaging this public service office. You know, they are doing nothing, they know they should not be leaving, but they are saying they are not leaving until they are paid.
But the process wasn't really up to them to decide, was it?
I can tell you...
Wasn't there supposed to be a committee, which we then saw put together, that would then say, these are your terms of exit? Or did you want them to
like
exit?
That. You know,
without any
public
guarantee?
service is a contractual employment arrangement.
Right.
And I can tell you, Yvonne, there is a gentleman who served Kenyans very well called Professor P.L. Lumumba. When Parliament sent him home, he went home. And I can tell you today, Yvonne, nobody has bothered to ask whether Professor Lumumba has been paid a coin. And by the way, he has not been paid. He was my partner, I know. What we were against is the idea that, you know, commissioners are holding a public office as a tool to blackmail, you know, the public into paying them whatever they want. And they were saying, really...
But this was an agreement that was made...
No, it was not an agreement. It was not in law. It was not in law.
Well, but the Joint Parliamentary Select Committee, one, found not enough evidence to say that they were at fault, and then agreed that there would be an honourable exit for the commissioners.
If an honourable exit does not mean you don't leave that office until you paid what you want. What I'm against is the idea that we sit down and you say we want immunity, we want to be paid this amount of money. In any event, remember, this was an employment contract. Even if by now, and this I dare say, even if by now we decided we were not paying them, they have the law courts to go and enforce their contractual arrangements based on the method of termination.
So we're going back to the streets?
What we were against is the idea that these gentlemen sit, and I don't know who is pampering them, that they can negotiate. This is an office of public service, but they are not serving anybody. You know, if you're in the situation of those commissioners, would you do anything related to elections? So you've held that office hostage. You're telling us until you pay according to our terms. That's why we're saying, this is a lot of nonsense. You people get out. You can enforce your terms elsewhere. Okay. And it is not for us as opposition. Remember, we passed a law. And Yvonne, let me tell the country that amongst the amendments we rejected on that date, when we were passing this bill, was a proposal that we have in law provision, you know, bringing something called dignified exit. And we said, what is that? Let them go and enforce their things outside there.
All right, let's hear from...
Yeah, so really, that is what we were reacting to. But let me say, Yvonne, we are very happy. We are very happy they are saying they are going. And we were going to say that if they were not going to... They have to go.
No, they are going. I think it's not they have to. I think that agreement is in place. But Jeanette is saying that they should not wait for the handover, and that on the 10th there will be protests and going back to the streets.
What are they handing over? Matters to be dealt with at IEBC.
All right, so are we going back to the streets? Is that what ODM is saying?
If they don't leave, of course we will go and pull them. I mean, there is no problem. We are not joking about these elections.
All right, let's hear from...
Yeah, they're going to drag them out and have 4 other people killed. Like the one they had killed for us to get to a point we have.
No.
You know, for them, they dance at the graves of their supporters. These guys are so dishonest. So going back to the street, what did you achieve? Do you know in the last commission, in the other commission that is going out, even Orengo admitted in his own letter to his own party that out of the 8 or 9 commissioners, ODM had 6. Now, what have they gained from all these demonstrations? These guys are so clueless. You know, they just go to the streets, have people killed, they achieved nothing. Now commissioners, the president will get 11 names, he will appoint 7. What have you achieved? These people, you know, at the end of the day, they're going to have their package. What have you achieved? You know, these rates of demonstration and all that, that's fine. But tell me, at the end of the day, what do you achieve? Show me one thing you got from these demonstrations. You lost everything.
Yvonne, I'm very happy Kuria is bringing this issue. You know, for us as people whose elections were rigged in 2007, and as people whose elections were rigged in 2013, we were very clear about what we need to seal the loophole. The Jubilee side was focused on how they get commissioners. And with our experiences as CORD, we had said, we don't want to put trust in human beings. So Moses Kuria, remember...
But yet that is what's going to happen, because the president will be given a number of names from which he will choose 7.
We don't care who the commissioners are. We want the laws we've put in place, and we want the integrated electronic system put in place. Once it is put in place, Kuria, I want to tell you, you cannot rig again. And you are going home. Let me be clear about this.
I'm going home after this show. But anyway, coming back to the point.
No, you are going home after next
after
elections.
This show, I'm going home. I don't know about that. Now, you know, this, what my friend Amenasi calls the screensaver of being rigged out. The other time we were rigged out, this time we were rigged out. But I think you should be rigged out the that time. You know, like in football, if you win a trophy 3 times, you keep it.
This time you can't rig.
If
That
you are
is what
rigged
I'm
this
telling
time,
you.
the copy of the trophy of being rigged, you can keep it forever. The trophy of losers, you can keep it forever. But anyway, I think you know, seeing that it's Junet there, you know, who is speaking about going back to the streets, it's painful because Junet and I spent hours.
Yes.
And we knew even what we are recommending, that the timelines are squeezed. So I think what we need to do is to have some sense of responsibility. And say, this is our baby, all of us. And we do what we can do to be able to fasten the process. But every time looking for someone to blame, it's not going to help it. It just continues to prove how ODM and CORD are not ready to govern. In any case, we know why they were doing that. You know that house is crumbling. You know the CORD house is crumbling. So by them saying that you are going back to the streets, perhaps it keeps Kalonzo, you know, into the house for 5 more days instead of, you know,
Yvonne,
it keeps Weta in the house. So it's just, you know, every time there's a crisis, the biggest winner is always Raila Amolo Odinga.
So you don't see a crisis?
There's no crisis. All we need is goodwill, sit down together, even as parliament, because this process was run back to us, and actually we are going to midwife a very good process.
Okay, he says he doesn't see a crisis. Do you agree?
You know, I regret we are regressing. Because, you know, Moses Kuria is not telling the country why the president had to add a document in Europe for a whole 14 days on his table before signing it. And what you are saying is that this has delayed time. All over the world, any ruling government which is confident of winning even calls snap elections. What this show is about is why is the Jubilee side delaying? When commissioners are to leave, they want to pretend to be negotiating with them for eternity.
Okay,
but going forward,
allow me to interject. So where do you see the problem? Because before you said it was the commissioners who were sitting there holding the country hostage. Now you're saying it is Jubilee that is allowing the commissioners to be in place. And then we hear a statement from, you know, Jeanette saying, making some rather damning allegations that they're there, you know, to continue with some fraud or corruption. Where do you see the problem and how do we solve it? Because talking about what the president should have done with the 14 days, that's past. So I'd like us to look towards the future. What happens now going forward?
Yes, now going forward, we are at a stage where the bodies that should be appointing members of the selection panel should be nominating their persons. And let me confirm to you that the law has been there for quite some time. So those institutions know one another. And I can assure you, having you know, read the media, there is you know, already proposals coming from them. Then the law that Moses Kuria and his colleagues, you know, brought to us and we passed without change says, on the first setting of that selection, you know, panel, they'll appoint their chair. And within 7 days, they advertise for those, you know, Kenyans who want to be commissioners, you know, to apply straight away. There is no timeline in terms of how, you know, the interview and shortlisting should take. And so my view is that within 2 weeks from 4th of October, we should actually be having nominees of the commission sent to the president. And we have the commission running. The immediate task, of course, the commission will be undertaking is to create what, you know, Moses Kuria brought in their law, which he does not remember now, called the technical committee. Now, this technical committee, sitting with the commission, will begin the process of procuring the integrated electronic, you know, system that we are talking about. So there is a lot of time. Even in terms of audit, let me clarify to our people that it is expected 6 months to elections. So long as we are going to have the commissioners, all we need to arrange for is how we procure these equipments. All we need to arrange for is one massive mass voter registration. And then we do an audit of the register, and of course we go to elections. There is nothing much to be done. But let me discourage an attitude from our commissions. Yes, very quickly.
Yeah.
You know, ours is the most expensive electoral process. And ours has been the most, you know, expensive electoral system. This one Moses Kuria is not telling you. So that idea that there may be lacking money or what is not an issue. There will be enough money for us to conduct elections. Let us prepare for 2017. And I dare say, as an opposition, we will not allow Jubilee a single extra day beyond 8th of August to rule this country. Yeah.
Actually, you know, you are preaching to the choir because we cannot wait for 8th of August. So these guys go home once and for all, and then, you know, this country will be different again. You know, the technical committee that he mentioned, and I agree that's very important. By the way, That was my recommendation because we had an ICT and technical subcommittee,
Yes.
which I was leading that process together with Senator Mutula Kilonzo. And the reason I came up with this, technical committee is to actually stop the blame game. And when these officers of IEBC came to us, the guys from the Secretariat, they were so afraid and intimidated by all the noise happening. And I was trying to imagine what kind of procurement can they carry out when everybody is looking left and right, and you've seen what has happened to people in the past and everything. So I say, let's have a broad-based, technical team that will ensure that once we make some decisions, especially procurement decisions, nobody is going to be blamed individually and told you did this and that. That's why I said, let's have people even from ICT Authority, from EACC, from the Audit Office, so that everybody is watching. Stakeholders.
Okay, so they're watching the process from start to finish.
Exactly. Because what has been happening also is a muddling up of commercial interests which then creates political issues. Unfortunately, it is us politicians who come to clean up political issues, which are created initially by commercial interests. So by having that technical committee, I was envisaging a situation whereby nobody is going to blame another, and we can actually have the critical equipment by, to be realistic, by Christmas, so that we can then do some testing. By the time we do the mass registration, before mass registration, we need to do testing. So the next mass registration is February. So I am very hopeful that if we do the right thing, by February we'll be able to know whether our EVID and BVID are talking to each other. Now, the biggest source of opportunity for actually, fine-tuning our electoral system is when IEBC administers, party nominations. Because if they do use BVR, and EVID for party nomination, then it is a good mock or a rehearsal for the final election, which of course these guys don't want to hear, because they want to keep having someone to blame.
It can't work. Yvonne, the difference between me and Moses, we are very good friends, is that I'm a lawyer. The Constitution, not a small law, the Constitution says that when parties conduct nominations, and there is any dispute between whoever has won and whoever has lost, it is IEBC through its committee to resolve that dispute. And Moses Kuria knows it. Now, how does that constitutional provision, operating under Article 38 of the Constitution, which entitles everybody to nomination, operate where IEBC, to whom you should be appealing, is the one that has conducted, the nominations? So what I'm saying is that...
Yet Raila Odinga asked the MPs to pass this law.
It is a very...
With no amendments.
Yeah, of course, if you have a law which is inconsistent with a constitutional provision, it is null and void. It is as good as it is not there.
But you cannot also,
let me clarify to all Kenyans that this thinking that Jubilee has, that IEBC shall conduct any party nominations, and I'm stating with knowledge because I'm in Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, it will not work.
So
organize your systems for party nominations.
Will ODM have the IEBC conduct its party primaries?
It cannot have unless the Constitution is changed.
But
these are the things we are talking about.
Article 88, subsection 2, it mandates IEBC to administer party nominations. He is a lawyer. I want him to dispute that. What we did now in the Elections Act that we amended in Parliament is pursuant to 88.2, if a party writes to IEBC and requests IEBC to conduct nominations, IEBC shall, underline the word, shall conduct party nominations with funding from the Exchequer. If ODM does not want, that's their problem. Nobody can force them. But if Jubilee, which is going to do, mark my words, do request IEBC to administer party nominations, then they are obligated
to do it. Okay, I'd like the final words, please, because we're out of time. Where do we go from here? There seems to be a common thread between the two of you, which is encouraging, I think, to the country that we have enough time and that, we can meet, the deadlines and the timelines towards August 2017. So your final words, where do we go from here and what do we expect?
Let us focus on implementing the law that we have as the people of Kenya. And the law is beautiful. There could be lapses, but they go into securing free and fair elections. Let the bodies that should be nominating members of the selection panel get us men and women of integrity, so that in future we don't say this one was nominated by which side or whatever side. And let the 11 people going to the president be people among whom any can be a commissioner. After that, let the processes go forward. And we are looking forward to a system where we are not told, the way I heard a politician say somewhere, that there is any possibility that technology can fail in future so that we revert to manual.
Okay.
Let us have technology superintend our electoral process, and let us have electoral system where the winner, for once, on 9th of August next year, it will be a quarter, government, is acknowledged by whoever we lose.
All right, thank you.
Let's also actually largely support my friend Peter Opondo Kaluma. What he's saying is right. But let's not look for opportunities to point fingers at each other. We have achieved so much by talking, and we've really taken sacrifice both sides. It is not time to start saying it is called committee or Jubilee committee or called commissioners and Jubilee commissioners or who is supposed to take the blame for this. Let's get to act together, and we are going to achieve that process. And from 9th of August next year, I've actually booked the Honorable Raila Odinga to spend, after losing, to spend a whole week with me in Gatundu.
That's
and,
a big wish.
Yeah.
Big wish.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. Honorable Moses Kuria, Honorable Peter Kaluma on CheckPoint. Which way IBC? They both seem optimistic that the country is headed in the right direction, and we will meet the deadlines by August 2017. Do you share their sentiments? Are you convinced? Please do keep